Command had already called it. Mission failed. All teams ordered out. At 4:12 a.m., heavy fog rolled over the Blue Ridge restricted zone, swallowing every signal. One by one, the trackers went dark. No comms, no response. The mountain was silent. Then, through the static of the emergency channel, Raven 6 reporting. Target neutralized. Repeat, target is down. The control room froze. Raven 6? That call sign belonged to a woman they'd marked as missing, and she was still out there, alone, finishing a fight no one could have survived. But how did she survive a mission that erased an entire squad? And what was waiting in those mountains? That no one at command dared to speak about? Her name was Claire Harlow. Age 34, American-born, with deep chestnut hair pulled into a low, no-nonsense bun. Medium build, steady presence. The kind of quiet strength you don't notice until it's right in front of you. Her movements were smooth, measured, the sort of economy you only see in someone who's been trained to move under fire. Officially, she was assigned to logistics for the 173rd Airborne. Out of Fort Bragg, nothing flashy. Her job was supposed to be simple. Keep Bravo 2 stocked with ammunition, gear, and medkits during their covert operation in the Ironwood Range. Nobody put her in the assault lineup. Claire rarely spoke unless addressed directly. Years ago, she'd led recon teams into hostile territory. But after one unrecorded mission claimed her entire unit, she'd quietly requested backline duty. Away from the spotlight, away from the risk of being noticed at all, the troops had a nickname for her, Shadow Step. Not out of fear, but because no one could pin down her story. She always seemed to be there when she was needed. And gone before anyone thought to look. She moved through the forward operating camp like morning mist, impossible to catch, impossible to forget. What no one realized was that Claire carried equipment never issued to a logistics officer, a compact, encrypted radio tuned to long-abandoned frequencies, a sidearm she handled like she'd never stopped qualifying, and a skill set she had no intention of using again. Until deployment night, just past midnight, separatists hit with precision no one expected, a coordinated strike from 3 directions at once, almost as if someone on the inside had given them the plan. The attack was fast. Too fast. Radios went silent. GPS blinked out, and then the fog came rolling in, heavy and deliberate, swallowing the range whole. Command caught fragments after that. Dull booms echoing off the ridges. Half-formed sentences over static before cutting out entirely. Drones found nothing in the kill zone. Thermal scans picked up faint cold spots in the valleys, maybe bodies. But the storm made confirmation impossible. At 4:12 a.m., after 8 hours of silence, the commander finally gave the order no one wanted to hear. Mission failed. Pull everyone out. Bravo 2 was presumed lost. All 7. Including one logistics specialist who just happened to be in the wrong place at the worst possible time. Claire Harlow had been marked missing. Most at command assumed she was dead. But Claire had survived worse. Far worse. Back in her days with Shadow Unit, she'd learned a very specific kind of patience. The kind you only gain from spending weeks behind enemy lines with no backup. And no way home. She'd learned how to steady her breathing when the situation collapsed. How to keep her thoughts clear when the people around her broke under the strain. How to strip a problem down to its bones when the standard playbook burned away. But the hardest lesson she carried from Shadow Unit was this. A mission doesn't end just because command says it's over. Sometimes it ends only when the last person standing decides it's done. And Claire wasn't finished. While headquarters drafted casualty reports and quietly prepared the memorial lists, Claire Harlow was already deep in the Ironwood. Range, using skills no one in her current role was supposed to have. She wasn't just surviving. She was hunting. I once spoke with a retired logistics NCO who told me, "Some people don't go missing. They just haven't reported in yet." That's exactly what this felt like. The look in their eyes when they haven't said a word. Because they're too focused on finishing what they started. At 6:15 a.m., 2 hours after, command had written the mission off as a total loss. The first irregularity came in. A recon drone sweeping a post-op grid picked up something strange. One hostile fighter neutralized. The shot was placed cleanly between the eyes, too precise to be luck, too measured to be panic. That wasn't random fire. That was the hand of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Then, at 7:40 a.m., another sign. The drone caught a brief glimpse of something wedged into a rock shelf. The recovery team moved in later and found a tactical map from Bravo 2. It wasn't abandoned. It was covered in clear, deliberate markings, tracking enemy movement and identifying strike positions. Then at 9:21 a.m., A 30-second burst lit up a dead frequency. A channel that hadn't been active in years. One encrypted transmission, then silence. The code embedded in it, Raven 7, made intelligence. Officer Captain Marcus Lane nearly dropped his coffee. That call sign hadn't appeared on any channel since 2016. Colonel Whitaker read the intercepted data twice. His face unreadable, then spoke just one order. Pull up Claire Harlow's full service record. Not just logistics. Everything. What they uncovered changed the entire picture. Claire hadn't always been a supply officer. Years earlier, she'd served with Shadow Unit 7, a Black Ops recon team that was burned during covert work in northern Syria. Everyone else on that team had died in the ambush. She was the only one who made it out alive. After that mission, Claire Harlow turned down every medal. She requested reassignment away from combat and quietly made sure her Shadow Unit record was sealed far from routine personnel files. No one thought to dig deeper when she signed on for logistics. No one imagined she still carried gear issued to Black Ops operatives. And no one believed she still had the same elite skill set that once made her one of the best in the field. But now, every clue pointed to the same conclusion. Claire wasn't gone. She was out there alone, turning the enemy's ambush into her own silent counter-operation. She wasn't just surviving. She was executing a mission against an entire combat unit, alone. Intelligence reports estimated the separatist force at 25 strong, dug in with heavy weapons and entrenched defenses. Under any standard rule, one operator going up against that meant certain death. But Shadow Unit didn't follow standard rules. They were trained to work alone when the playbook failed. They thrived in chaos. They excelled at surgical strikes. And they finished missions no one else could. And by all signs, Claire was methodically dismantling the very force that had taken out her team. At 11:04 a.m., Colonel Whitaker made a call no one would have imagined the night before. "We are supporting Raven 7. She's not lost. She's our vanguard now." The mission status was quietly reclassified. Not failed. Active under a confidential protocol. Because sometimes it isn't about how many are left. It's about who refuses to let it end. And sometimes one skilled, determined operator can do what an entire squad couldn't. Claire was proving that with every clean, calculated strike. I once saw an old reel of black and white footage from World War II. A stranded paratrooper carved 3 simple words into a stone. "I'm still here." So when I heard the Raven 7 signal, I didn't think of legend. I thought, someone is still out there, moving, working, breathing steady. At exactly 11:08 a.m., a sound broke across the emergency channel. Every head in the command center snapped toward the speakers. Raven 7 reporting. "Target down. Repeat, target down. Coordinates to follow." The voice came through ragged and faint, the static heavy. But the steadiness in her words made it unmistakable. And her call sign confirmed what they'd all begun to believe. Claire Harlow wasn't just alive. She was completing the objective no one at command believed could still be reached. The coordinates she transmitted locked in instantly on radar. They pointed to a single location. The enemy's central command hub. The original primary target for Bravo 2. Staff Sergeant Dana Willis, sitting on comms, stared at the grid in disbelief. Claire had taken out their entire command center alone. Colonel Whitaker didn't waste a second. He ordered immediate deployment of a specialized unit to locate and extract Raven 7. Whatever Claire had just accomplished, she needed evacuation and urgent medical care. But what the recovery team found at the site went far beyond their expectations. 3 enemy soldiers were down near the command hub, each eliminated with the same signature precision that had become Raven 7's trademark. No chaos, no wild gunfire, just 3 exact calculated strikes. The enemy's comms equipment was disabled, but not destroyed at random. Whoever had done it knew exactly which components to neutralize to block reinforcement signals, while keeping other systems intact, likely for intelligence purposes. And there was more. Bravo 2's missing medical supplies, assumed destroyed in the ambush, had been recovered, neatly packed, organized into a first aid kit marked only with an untraceable tag. Someone had salvaged what mattered and left it ready for pickup. Not far from the site, they found something else. A climbing staff. Etched into its surface were faint, deliberate letters. Claire survived. But that wasn't what stopped Colonel Whitaker in his tracks. Clara Harlow, Claire's younger sister, had been killed during the original Shadow Unit ambush 6 years earlier. The faint words carved into the staff were both a tribute and a vow. Close to that silent memorial, the recovery team spotted something else. A strip of cloth. stained with dried blood. Across it, scrawled in quick, deliberate handwriting, was a message. Don't waste recovery gear. And beneath it, just 3 characters. Or 7. Colonel Whitaker, hardened by 3 decades of service, read the message like it was sacred. Claire never chased recognition. She acted only when the world assumed it was already too late. Following the markers she had left behind, the team made a staggering discovery. 5 members of Bravo 2 were still alive. Somehow, Claire had tracked each of them down after the ambush, pulling them one by one out of hostile zones, concealing them inside a hidden cave network shielded from enemy search teams. She had patched their injuries with whatever she could, salvaged from the battlefield, rationed out water and scraps of food to keep them alive, and gave them something even more valuable than supplies. Hope. Hope at a moment they were certain no help was coming. And once she knew they were as safe as they could be, Claire turned right back into enemy territory, determined to finish the mission the rest had not been able to complete. Sergeant Elena Ruiz, barely conscious when help arrived, managed to whisper one thing. She told us to stay put until backup came. Said she still had work to do. Corporal Drew Morgan, despite a badly injured leg, kept a precise account of everything Claire had done to keep them alive. She moved like smoke, he wrote. No wasted motion, no sound. But she kept talking to us, kept us focused, kept us believing we were going to make it. But the most astonishing thing wasn't what Claire had done inside the cave. It was what they found near the entrance. Tactical notes were carved directly into the stone wall. Claire Harlow had mapped out enemy strengths, weak points, patrol routes, and equipment placement with the precision of a trained intelligence officer. She'd run a full reconnaissance operation. She'd cared for 5 wounded soldiers. And she'd built an assault plan completely on her own. When Captain Marcus Lane reviewed the evidence, all he could do was shake his head in disbelief. This wasn't just survival. This was expert-level solo warfare. But Claire herself was already gone. Tracks near the cave showed she had moved on, deeper into the Ironwood range. She left only after making certain her team had shelter, enough supplies and detailed instructions on exactly how to stay alive. One final message, scrawled on a strip of torn fabric, offered a glimpse into her state of mind. Mission target complete. Bravo 2 located, stabilized. Recommend immediate evac. Raven 7 will continue solo ops until all threats are neutralized. That was the moment Colonel Whitaker understood. Claire wasn't planning to return with the team. She intended to keep moving, until every last hostile in the region was gone. She'd taken on her own private war. We need to bring her in, Whitaker told the command staff. She's completed the mission, but she doesn't know how to stop. Someone has to tell her it's over. But tracking someone trained to disappear in enemy terrain is almost impossible, especially when that person doesn't want to be found. For 2 full days, command followed Claire Harlow's path the only way they could, by what she left behind. A dead patrol here, a fried communications hub there, supply chains severed like they'd been cut with surgical precision. She was dismantling the separatists' operation from the inside out, taking it apart, piece by piece with relentless, almost mechanical focus. Watching it unfold was equal parts awe-inspiring and unsettling, because Claire Harlow had become what military theory often talked about, but almost never saw in reality. A single operator waging an entire campaign against a force 3 times her size. She wasn't just supporting the mission anymore. She was the mission, and she was winning. But victories like that carry a cost you won't see on any casualty sheet, or in any after-action report. Sometimes the price is becoming someone who no longer knows how to come home. What do you think so far? Has Claire's story kept you hooked? Every move, every risk, every strike? If you're as locked in as we are, take a moment to hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the mission is far from over, not until the job is truly finished. That's how some warriors think. They don't fight for recognition or medals. They fight because they're the last ones who still remember what's worth protecting. 3 days after Bravo 2 had been pulled out, at exactly 0500 hours, just as the base was beginning to stir, a lone figure walked through the front gate. Rail-thin from days without food, her jacket torn, caked in grime, and in things darker than mud. Her hair was still wound into that same tight bun, now matted with dried blood and mountain dust. Slung across her shoulder was the Bravo 2 flag, taken during the ambush and flown above the enemy's stronghold. She had cut it down herself, and carried it across 25 miles of hostile terrain to bring it home. No gear, no weapon. She'd left all of it behind. Everything tied to the fight was over. The gate sentry, barely awake and expecting another routine shift, didn't recognize her at first. "Identification?" he asked out of habit. Claire Harlow looked him straight in the eye. Eyes that had seen too much in too little time, but her voice was steady. "Raven 7, delivering Bravo 2's colors." The color drained from his face as the name hit him. "Ma'am, you're alive." Claire just nodded, stepping past him toward the medical wing. She didn't stop. Didn't explain. Didn't respond to the whispers or sidelong stares that followed her through the base. She had one last task before she could finally let go. Inside the infirmary, she placed the flag carefully on the front desk and spoke to the nurse on duty. 5 soldiers pulled from grid, Roti 7 North, logged for continued medical treatment. Full debrief available upon request. Then Claire sat down in a waiting room chair and, for the first time in 72 hours, let her eyes close. When Colonel Whitaker arrived 10 minutes later, she was asleep. Upright. Perfect posture. Still locked in discipline even in rest. The word spread across the base within hours. Raven 7 had come home. The mission was finally, fully complete. Command granted Claire's request for an honorable discharge, with a special commendation in intelligence. Operations, the first awarded in nearly a decade. But she never showed up for the medal. She was already gone. The attending physician confirmed she'd been treated for dehydration, exhaustion, and a handful of minor injuries, then slipped out before sunrise. No forwarding address. No listed contact. She'd done what she came to do, gotten her team home, and closed the mission. The rest was just protocol. The surviving members of Bravo 2 asked that their unit's flag be placed in the base memorial hall. Alongside it, a plain, unmarked plaque, returned by Raven 7. No one left behind. That's how it went into the record. Staff Sergeant Williams, the man who had traced her faint signals through all 3 days, added his own words to the final report. Some serve for medals, some for recognition. But Raven 7 fought because someone had to bring them home. The stretch of mountains where Claire Harlow had waged her silent war was marked on the maps forever, not as a danger zone, but as a monument, proof of what one determined soldier can do when everyone else has given up. Intelligence analysts later confirmed what the fragments of her work already suggested. Claire had eliminated or neutralized every single member of the 25-man enemy unit during her 3-day campaign alone, a mission most full companies wouldn't dare to attempt. And she never once asked for recognition, because for Claire Harlow, finishing the mission was never about credit. It was about making sure every name on the roster made it home. It was never about medals, never about recognition. For Claire Harlow, it was always about one thing, making sure the others got home. Weeks later, a young clerk working late in the base, archives found an unmarked envelope in the internal mail. Inside was a hand-drawn map. It traced Claire's full path through the Black Ridge Range. Terrain markers, water sources, overwatch positions, every detail logged with precision. At the very bottom, in block letters, one line was written, "No one should be left behind. But if they are, leave them a way out." Bravo 2 was reassembled and reactivated. Claire's fieldwork was studied, documented, and eventually codified as protocol. R7, a tactical survival doctrine for units cut off deep, behind hostile lines. It became required training for every operator, who might one day be the last one standing. And the first lesson was always the same. A mission doesn't end when the radios go dark. It ends when the last soul stops pushing forward. Corporal Elena Ruiz, one of the soldiers Claire had pulled out of the mountains, was later promoted to lead instructor for the R7 course. She'd tell recruits, "I never got a clear look at her during the rescue, but I could feel it." She believed the job wasn't over as long as even one of us was breathing. Claire never gave interviews, never appeared at reunions, never allowed her name to appear in articles. But across the special operations community, her story became legend. In advanced training centers from Fort Bragg to Coronado, instructors reference Raven 7 when teaching survival under impossible odds. The phrase became quiet code for staying behind when others retreat, pressing forward when the map ends, and refusing to quit when the manual says the mission is done. Young operators still ask about the quiet logistics specialist who fought an entire enemy force alone, and the answer is always the same. Some people don't need medals or attention. They just need to know their people made it out. 5 years after the Black Ridge operation, a memorial appeared at the Raven Unit training grounds. No names, no dates, Just a smooth granite stone etched with 7 simple words. They believed someone was still worth saving. Veterans who stood before it didn't need more. They understood, because when everything breaks down, when no help is coming, when every signal is dead and the odds say walk away, there's always one last move. You keep going. Claire Harlow proved to the world that one person with the right skills, the right purpose, and the right kind of heart can change the entire outcome of a mission. She showed that the most important victories aren't always about defeating the enemy. Sometimes the real win is bringing your team home, and in the places where hope dies and the maps run out, her example still holds. Raven 7, keep fighting. Keep moving. Keep believing. Because as long as even one person refuses to quit, the mission continues. Pause, shift tone to direct, inviting. If Claire's story meant something to you, if it reminded you why these missions matter, take a second to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Black and Wronged for more stories worth remembering. No shortcuts. No filler. Just the kind of stories that stay with you.